I used to consider myself the kind of person who always stops to help. Flat tire, I'll pull over. Dead battery, I've got jumper cables. Stranded, I'd at least call someone for you. But that changed on a Tuesday night in October. I was driving home from visiting a friend in a neighbouring town. It was around 10:15 p.m. and I was on a divided highway. 2 lanes each direction with a wide grassy median in between. It wasn't completely empty, but traffic was light. About 10 minutes into the drive, I noticed a car stopped in the median up ahead, hazard lights on, driver's door open. At first I assumed they'd lost control and slid into the grass, but as I got closer, I could see the car was parked neatly, almost too neatly, parallel to traffic, and there was a man standing outside it. He wasn't waving frantically, he wasn't trying to flag cars down, he was just standing there with his hands at his sides watching the road. As I passed, he turned his head and looked directly at me. Something about that moment made my stomach tighten. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the way he didn't move, didn't signal, didn't react like someone who needed help. I drove another half mile, and then I did what I always do. I felt guilty. What if he had car trouble? What if his phone was dead? So I took the next exit, looped around, and headed back the other direction. As I approached again, I slowed down and rolled my window halfway. He was still there, same position. I pulled onto the shoulder across from the median and called out, "Hey, do you need help?" He didn't answer right away. He just stared. Then he slowly pointed down at his car. I couldn't hear him over the traffic, so I motioned for him to come closer to the shoulder so we could talk safely. He didn't move toward me. Instead, he started walking along the median parallel to my car, matching my speed as I rolled forward slightly. That tight feeling came back. I stopped moving, and he stopped too. That's when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. There was something sitting in the driver's seat of this disabled car. I could see the outline clearly now. The engine wasn't off, the car was running. I looked back at the man in the grass, and he was no longer pretending to look stranded. He was watching me carefully, calculating, and then I understood. If I had pulled into that median, if I had parked near his vehicle, I would have been boxed in on both sides. Him outside, someone else inside the car, me with nowhere to go. I put my car in drive immediately. The second my brake lights went off, the man sprinted toward my car. I hit the gas. He reached the edge of the shoulder just as I sped past him. I heard a loud smack against the side of my car. His hand hit in my rear door. In my mirror, I saw him run back toward the vehicle in the median. The broken down car's headlights turned on fully. It pulled out fast, cutting across the median and making a reckless U-turn through the gap meant for emergency vehicles. They tried to follow me, but I was already at highway speed. I called 911 while driving and gave them everything I could remember: location, car, colour, partial plate. The dispatcher told me to keep driving and not to go home, so I didn't. I drove straight to the nearest police station. 2 officers met me outside and checked my car. There was a clear handprint on the rear passenger door, dirt and grass smeared across the paint. While I was giving my statement, another call came in. Same highway, same description. This time the driver had pulled into the median. The police arrived fast enough to interrupt whatever was about to happen. There were 3 men in the vehicle, not 2. All of them were arrested that night. According to the officer who followed up with me later, they had zip ties, a knife, and duct tape in the back seat. They had been staging breakdowns for weeks. So I don't stop anymore. I don't care how bad it looks. If someone needs help, I call it in from a safe distance. Because if I had parked in that median like my instincts were telling me to, I wouldn't be the one sending this story to you. I work as a nurse and I usually get off my shift around 11:30 p.m. The hospital is about 35 minutes from my house and most of the drive is highway. It's boring, quiet and usually empty that late. That night didn't start out strange. I remember leaving the parking garage at around 11:42 p.m. I was tired, looking forward to a shower and going straight to bed. I called my sister while I drove, just to stay awake. We talked for maybe 10 minutes before the call dropped when I hit a stretch with bad service. That's when I first noticed the car behind me. It was a dark SUV. I couldn't tell the make or model. It wasn't doing anything wrong, just sitting a little closer than most people do at night. I moved over a lane to let it pass, but it didn't. It stayed behind me. I figured maybe they were just zoning out like I was, so I switched lanes again. They switched too. That's when I felt it, that small nagging feeling that maybe this wasn't random. I told myself I was being dramatic. We exited the highway at the same ramp. That still wasn't enough to convince me. Lots of people live out my way. But then I made a turn I don't normally make. There are two ways to get to my neighbourhood. One is direct, the other loops through a darker residential area with older houses and fewer streetlights. I only take it when I want to avoid a long red light. I took that turn, so did they. At this point, I started watching more carefully. Every turn I made, they made. No hesitation, no delay, just steady. They weren't tailgating, they weren't flashing lights, they were just there. About 5 car lengths back. I didn't want to drive straight home anymore. If they were following me, I didn't want them knowing exactly where I lived. So instead of turning into my subdivision, I drove past it. The SUV drove past it too. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could hear it. I decided to test it one more time. Up ahead, there's a small 24-hour gas station near a closed strip mall. It's always lit up bright. I figured if I pulled in suddenly, I could see what they'd do. I didn't use my signal. I just slowed down quickly and turned in. They turned in right after me. That's when I knew. I parked near the entrance under the brightest light I could find. My hands were shaking. I considered going inside, but I didn't want to get out of my car. The SUV parked 3 rows away. It didn't pull up next to me, but it didn't leave. It just sat there, engine running. I could see a silhouette in the driver's seat. They weren't looking at their phone or moving around. They were just facing forward and waiting. I stayed there for what felt like forever, but was probably 2 minutes. I picked up my phone and pretended to take a picture of their vehicle. I wanted them to see me doing it. Almost immediately, their headlights turned off, then back on. Then the SUV slowly reversed out of the parking spot. Instead of leaving the lot, though, they drove slowly past the front of my car. Not fast, not aggressive, just slow enough that I could feel it was intentional. I couldn't see their face clearly because of the glare, but I could tell they were looking at me. Then they drove out of the parking lot and turned right. I waited a full 5 minutes before moving. Instead of going home, I drove straight to the police station about 10 minutes away and parked outside. I didn't even go in, I just sat there. I watched every car that passed, and thankfully the SUV never came back. Eventually I drove home using the main road and circled my neighbourhood twice before pulling into my driveway. For the next week I kept checking behind me whenever I drove at night. 3 days later, I saw the same dark SUV sitting in the parking lot of a grocery store near my house during the day. It might have been a coincidence. I tell myself that it was. But when I slowed down to look at it, the driver immediately pulled out and left before I could get close enough to read the plate. Maybe they were just another tired driver heading the same way. Maybe I overreacted. But I can't shake one thing. If I had turned into my subdivision that night like I normally do, they would have known exactly which house was mine. And I don't know what would have happened after that.